Segun left, saying he wasn't ready for the responsibilities and disappearing from their lives forever. With two children to care for on her own, Ajoke's heart ached, yet she didn't give up on love. She wanted her children to have a father figure, someone who would complete their family and share the love she had to give. Ajoke had always believed in love. Growing up in a small town, she spent countless days imagining her future. She dreamt of meeting someone special, a partner who would cherish her and build a happy life together. Her mind was filled with romantic notions from the love stories she had read. She was just certain that one day she would find a love just as beautiful as she has read. When Ajoke turned 22, she thought she had found love in Kehinde. He was her real first love, and he filled her world with laughter and promises. Kehinde was charming, attentive, and always seemed to know exactly what to say to make her heart flutter. They would take long walks, talk about their dreams, and plan a future together. Kehinde often told her, "Ajoke, I want us to build something beautiful. You're the one I want to be with forever." Ajoke was swept off her feet. She trusted him with all her heart, believing his words and imagining a future where they would build a home and family together. But life had other plans. A few months into their relationship, Ajoke discovered she was pregnant. Nervous but hopeful, she shared the news with Kehinde, expecting joy and excitement. But instead, she saw hesitation in his eyes, a look that soon turned into avoidance. At first, Kehinde made excuses, claiming he was overwhelmed and needed time to think. But as the weeks passed, he became very distant, his promises fading away like dust in the wind. One day, without a word, Kehinde disappeared from her life, leaving Ajoke heartbroken and alone. She was left to raise their beautiful daughter Shade all by herself. The love that had once felt so promising had left her only memories and a child to care for. Despite the heartbreak, Ajoke held on to hope. She believed that maybe her love story wasn't over yet, and she would one day meet someone who would love her and Shade unconditionally. 4 years later, Ajoke met Segun. He was different from Kehinde. He was kind, gentle, and patient. He was understanding of her past and treated Shade with genuine affection. Segun would come over, bringing small gifts for Shade and spending time with them as a family. Slowly, Ajoke's heart opened again. She believed she had found her second chance at happiness. When Segun told her he loved her, she believed him, convinced that this time things would be different. Soon, Ajoke found herself expecting another child, a son she would name Tayo. But after Tayo was born, things started to change. Segun, who had once been so attentive and loving, began to distance himself. He was rarely home, often making excuses about work or family commitments. Ajoke tried to hold on to the relationship, hoping things would improve, but eventually Segun left too, saying he wasn't ready for the responsibilities and disappearing from their lives forever. With two children to care for on her own, Ajoke's heart ached, yet she didn't give up on love. She wanted her children to have a father figure, someone who would complete their family and share the love she had to give. A few years passed and she met another man named Bode. Bode was very supportive, compassionate, and willing to embrace both her and her children. Ajoke was cautious, but Bode seemed very different, patient and understanding of her journey. He assured her that he was here to stay, and once again, Ajoke allowed herself believe. She felt a deep sense of gratitude when Bode took Shade and Tayo under his wing, treating them as his own. She imagined a future where they would be a complete family. Not long after, Ajoke and Bode welcomed their daughter, whom they named Bola. For a brief moment, Ajoke felt her dreams coming true. But once again, reality shattered her hopes. Bode too eventually walked away, saying the responsibilities were too much for him to handle. He left just like Kehinde and Segun, leaving Ajoke to pick up the pieces of her life. Years later, now at 32, Ajoke found herself raising 3 children from 3 different fathers, each one a reminder of the broken dreams and promises that had marked her journey. People in her community whispered whenever she walked by, casting judgmental glances and gossiping about her mistakes. She had become a topic for gossip, and it seemed that every man she met saw her past as a warning sign rather than a story of resilience. Ajoke struggled with the weight of her past, wondering if she would ever find someone who would look beyond her story and see the love she still had to give. Life in the small town was like a fishbowl. Everyone saw everything, and no one let you forget your past. For Ajoke, the town felt suffocating. Every time she went to the market, fetched water, or simply walked down the street with her children, she could feel the eyes on her. People whispered, their judgment hanging in the air like a dark cloud, making her every step heavy. On a warm Tuesday morning, Ajoke decided to take her children to the market. She held little Bola's hand tightly, while Sade and Tayo walked just a few steps ahead, laughing and chatting about what they hoped she would buy as a treat. Their laughter was the only sound that brought her peace, the only thing that reminded her that she had a purpose beyond the judgment of others. As they made their way through to the market, she could feel people staring. She tried to ignore it, focusing on choosing fresh vegetables, but the whispers grew louder, filling her ears with every harsh words. Look at her, 3 children, and not a single man in sight. She had a woman murmur nearby. Ajoke forced herself to stay calm, her face a mark of composure. Inside, however, her heart ached with the shame and frustration. She hadn't asked for this life, hadn't asked for 3 fathers to abandon her with their children. Each of her children had been born out of love and hope, but somehow it seemed like fate had conspired against her happiness. One of the women selling fish noticed her and gave her a disapproving shake of her head. 3 children, 3 different men, she muttered, just loud enough for Ajoke to hear, and she still walks around as if she's respectable. Ajoke clenched her jaw and kept her gaze fixed on the tomatoes in front of her. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her reaction, though inside, her heart was breaking. She picked up a few tomatoes, trying to ignore the women's laughter as they looked at her way, their eyes filled with scorn. Is she still looking for another man to add to her collection? One woman sneered, her voice carrying a mix of mockery and disdain. Just then, Sade, her oldest, tugged at her hand and whispered, "Mommy, are you okay?" The child's innocent concern was a reminder of why she had to stay strong. Her children needed her, and no amount of judgment could take away the love she had for them. Ajoke gave her daughter a reassuring smile. "I am fine, Sade. Let's just finish quickly and head home." Once they had bought everything they needed, Ajoke hurried the children out of the market. She held her head high, determined not to let the town's whisper break her. But her heart felt as heavy as the bags she carried. When they returned home, Ajoke prepared lunch for the children, her hands moving automatically as her mind replayed the events of the market. The things people said cut deep. It wasn't just strangers, they were people she had grown up with, people who knew her before life had taken its toll. Later that evening, her closest friend Yetunde came to pay her a visit. Yetunde was one of the few people in the town who never judged her, who had seen her struggles and stood by her through it all. As they sat together in Ajoke's small living room, Ajoke finally allowed herself to release the tears she had been holding back all day. "Yetunde, why does everyone treat me like this? Am I cursed? Ajoke's voice trembled as she spoke, her face filled with pain. It's not my fault things turned out this way. Yetunde reached over and held her friend's hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. Ajoke, people will always talk, but you can't let their words define you. You are a strong woman and you have 3 beautiful children who love you. That's what matters. Ajoke wiped her tears, managing a small smile. I tried to remember that, but some days it's harder than others. I never wanted this life, Yetunde. I wanted a family, a real family. Yetunde nodded, understanding the longing in her friend's heart. I know, Ajoke, but look at what you've done on your own. You are raising those children with so much love. Don't let anyone take that from you. Ajoke leaned back, feeling a little lighter. Yetunde's words were like a balm to her wounded heart, reminding her that she wasn't alone, and there were people who saw her for who she truly was, a mother doing her best in a very difficult situation. As the evening wore on, the 2 friends talked, their voices filling the small room with laughter and warmth. For a few precious hours, Ajoke could forget about the town's judgment, about the whispers and stare. She could simply be herself, a mother, a friend, and a woman who had endured more than most. But as Yetunde left, the house grew quiet. Ajoke's fears returned, settling over her like a shadow. She wondered if she would ever find someone who would look past her mistakes, someone who would love her and her children, someone who would see her as more than the rumors that surrounded her. She went to bed that night with a silent prayers in her heart, a whisper of hope that maybe, just maybe, her story wasn't over yet. One hot afternoon, as Ajoke navigated the bustling market, carefully balancing a basket of fresh vegetables and fruits, she accidentally bumped into a man. Her basket tumbled to the ground, scattering all her items everywhere. Embarrassed, she quickly bent down to gather her items, murmuring apologies. The man she had bumped into crouched beside her, helping to pick up her scattered tomatoes and yams. He looked up at her with a warm smile and said, "It's all right, these things happen. The market can be a battlefield sometimes." His voice held a lightness that made Ajoke smile despite her embarrassment. "Thank you," she replied, glancing up at him. He was tall, with gentle eyes and a reassuring presence. She hadn't noticed him before in town, and there was something refreshing about his demeanor. She felt a little spark of ease and comfort around him, something she hadn't felt in a long time. They stood up, and he handed her the last of her vegetables. "I am Akin, by the way," he said, extending a hand. "Ajoke," she replied, shaking his hand shyly. They parted ways, but the brief encounter left Ajoke feeling lighter. There was something kind in Akin's gaze, something that made her feel seen, not judged. She dismissed it as a pleasant moment, thinking she would never see him again. But as fate would have it, their paths crossed a few more times over the next week. Sometimes she would see him while she was buying bread or when she passed by the store selling vegetables. Each time, he greeted her with a smile and they exchanged friendly words that left Ajoke smiling long after he had walked away. One bright afternoon, as they ran into each other near the fruit store, Akin struck up a conversation. They ended up talking for nearly half an hour, sharing stories about their lives. Ajoke surprised herself by laughing, truly laughing at a joke he made. She couldn't remember the last time she had felt so relaxed with someone. Akin didn't pry into her past. He didn't seem to care about the rumors that seemed to follow her around town. He treated her as a friend, and that small kindness meant more to her than she could express. Days passed, and Ajoke began to look forward to her chance encounters with Akin. He was respectful, kind, and he spoke to her with a warmth that made her feel like she mattered, like she wasn't just the subject of whispers. For the first time in years, Ajoke felt a glimmer of hope. However, the town wasn't as forgiving. People noticed Ajoke and Akin talking and began to gossip. One evening, As Ajoke walked home, she overheard two women talking about her. Can you believe it? She's already chasing another man, and it hasn't even been long since the last one, the woman sneered. Some people never learn, the other woman replied, shaking her head in disapproval. Ajoke's heart sank, but she held her head high, refusing to show any sign of hurt. She knew the town was judgmental, but it still stung. Akin noticed the whispers too, and one evening, as they chatted by the roadside, he asked her about it. Ajoke, I've noticed people seem to talk about you. I don't mean to pry, but if you would like to share, I'm here to listen, he said gently, his eyes filled with understanding. Ajoke hesitated. She had never opened up to anyone about her past, but something about Akin made her feel safe. Taking a deep breath, she began to tell him her story, her voice trembling as she recounted her first love with Kehinde, the heartbreak of his sudden departure after Shade was born, and the painful endings with Segun and Bode. She explained how each man had left her alone with a child, leaving her to bear the weight of responsibility and the town's scorn. Akin listened quietly, never interrupting, and when she finished, he looked at her with a genuine compassion. Ajoke, you are stronger than anyone I've ever met, he said softly. To raise 3 children on your own, to face this judgment every day and still keep going, that's a real strength. Ajoke's eyes welled up with tears at his words. She had grown used to the harsh judgment and cold stares, but hearing someone acknowledge her struggles felt like a balm to her wounded heart. I didn't plan for things to turn out this way, Akin, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I wanted a family, a real family, but life just had other plans for me. Akin nodded, understanding the sorrow in her voice. Ajoke, don't let people's judgments keep you from living your life. You have every right to find happiness, and remember, you are not defined by what people think. They don't know the battles that you faced. Ajoke felt truly seen, not as the woman with 3 children from 3 different men, but as someone worthy of kindness and respect. Months passed, and the friendship between Ajoke and Akin deepened in a way that neither of them had anticipated. They continued to meet regularly, sharing quiet walks, meals, and stories. With each passing day, Akin's presence in her life became a source of comfort and joy. He was gentle and kind, and his laughter filled a gap in her heart that she had long forgotten was there. For Ajoke's children, Shade, Tayo, and Bola, Akin quickly became a familiar figure. At first, they were shy and uncertain around him. Shade, being the eldest at 8, was cautious, watching him carefully as if to see if he would vanish from their lives like the other men had. Tayo, who was 6, observed him curiously, while the little Bola, just 3, clung to her mother's side whenever Akin was around, her wide eyes filled with a mix of awe and hesitation. But Akin didn't rush them. He was present, taking the time to get to know each of them, to understand their unique personalities. He would bring in small treats when he visited. An orange, a doll, or a book. He asked about their days at school and listened with genuine interest as they recounted their little triumphs and struggles. Gradually, the children warmed to him, seeing him as a friend, a safe presence who made their mother smile. Ajoke watched these beautiful moments with a heart that was both full and cautious. She felt hope blossoming inside of her, like a small bud reaching for sunlight. It was a fragile feeling, and she was almost afraid to nurture it. However, the shadows of her past weighed heavily on her heart. Every time she felt herself growing closer to Akin, a small voice in her mind reminded her of her past disappointments, of the men who had made promises only to leave her with a broken heart and an empty home. She wondered if Akin would be different, or if he too would one day walk away, leaving her to pick up the pieces. Later that night, as Ajoke tucked her children into bed, she saw happiness in their eyes, the joy that had blossomed with Akin's presence in their life. Shade hugged her mother tightly and whispered, "I like Uncle Akin, he makes you smile." Ajoke held her daughter close, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She kissed Sade's forehead and whispered back, "I like him too, my love." As she settled into bed that night, her mind drifted to Akin's words and his promise to stay by her side. Though she still carried the weight of her past, Ajoke knew that perhaps, just perhaps, she was given a chance to rewrite her story. And for the first time in many years, she felt ready to take up that chance. Just when Ajoke had started to feel like her life was turning around, she and Akin were growing closer, and for the first time, she felt as if happiness was within reach again. But as life often went, the peace she was beginning to enjoy was short-lived. One afternoon, a woman named Lola arrived back in town. Lola was someone Akin had known for years, a close friend from his past, and from what Ajoke soon gathered, Lola had once hoped for more than friendship with Akin. Seeing Akin moving on with someone else, especially with a woman like Ajoke, stirred something dark in Lola. It didn't take long for Lola to start making her presence known. She sought out Akin whenever she could, showing up at his work and inviting him for casual meetups, reminiscing about the shared memories they had. At first, Akin didn't see anything wrong with it, thinking she was just reconnecting. But as Lola grew more involved in his life, her intentions became clear. She wanted Akin, and she saw Ajoke as an obstacle standing in her way. Ajoke began to notice the subtle ways Lola inserted herself into their lives. Whenever Ajoke and Akin were out together, Lola would somehow appear, acting overly familiar with Akin and ignoring Ajoke entirely. It was as if she wanted to make Ajoke feel out of place, like she didn't belong in Akin's world. Then the rumors started. Lola began spreading stories about Ajoke, and her words were laced with judgment. "Did you hear? She has 3 children, all from different men," Lola would say to anyone willing to listen, her tone dripping with scorn. Imagine that. 3 fathers for 3 children. What kind of a woman does that? As Lola's rumors spread, people in the town started to talk more openly about Ajoke, the whispers growing louder and more piercing. Those who had once sympathized with her struggles now looked at her differently. They questioned her morals, her choices, and even her worth. The rumors soon reached Akin's family, and they too were unsettled. Akin's parents had heard of Ajoke and her past, but they hadn't known the full story until Lola's embellished tales began to circulate. The stories were harsh and painted Ajoke as irresponsible as a woman who had failed to maintain a stable family. One evening, Akin's mother called him aside, her face serious. "Akin, we've heard things, troubling things. This woman, Ajoke, she's not the type of woman you should be with. She is a single mother with 3 children from 3 different men. People are talking, and they wonder why you would want to involve yourself in such a complicated situation." Akin tried to defend Ajoke, telling his mother that she didn't know the full story, that Ajoke had been through difficult circumstances and was a good woman at heart. But his mother wouldn't listen, her mind already poisoned by Lola's words. "Akin, think of your reputation, your future. You deserve someone without such baggage." Feeling torn, Akin avoided Ajoke for a few days, trying to make sense of his emotions and the pressure from his family. He loved Ajoke, but he could feel the weight of everyone's disapproval pressing down on him. Even his friends started questioning his choice, asking him if he was sure about being with someone who had a history as complicated as Ajoke's. One evening, Akin finally decided to confront the issue. He went to see Ajoke, his heart heavy with dread. She welcomed him in, sensing something was wrong from the sadness in his eyes. They sat down in their modest living room, and Akin struggled to find the right words. "Ajoke," he began, his voice quiet. "There is something I need to talk to you about." He paused, taking a deep breath. "My family, they are not happy with us being together. They've been hearing things, and they think it's best If we just end this," he stammered. Ajoke felt her heart sink. Though she had sensed that something was amiss, hearing Akin's words made the pain real. She looked down, unable to meet his gaze, and whispered, "Akin, I understand. I know what people say about me. I know the kind of reputation I have. It's hard to ignore it." Akin reached out, taking her hand in his. "Ajoke, I care about you and I care about the kids. This isn't what I want, but the pressure especially from family, is getting too much. Everywhere I turn, there are whispers and judgments, even from people that I trust the most." Ajoke nodded. "I've been through this before, Akin. I know how it feels when people look at you and see only your mistakes. If leaving me makes things easier for you, then I won't stop you." Akin's grip on her hand tightened and he looked at her. "It's not that simple, Ajoke. I don't want to leave, but I don't know how to stand up to everyone when they are convinced that I am making a big mistake." They sat in silence for a long time, the weight of the situation settling over them. Akin eventually rose to leave, giving her one last lingering look. "I need to think, Ajoke. I don't want to lose you, but I don't know what to do at the moment." As he left, Ajoke watched him go, feeling her world crumbled around her once again. She had allowed herself to hope, to believe in a future with someone who saw her beyond her past. But now, it felt as though her past would always haunt her, preventing her from finding the happiness she so desperately wanted. That night, as she lay in bed, Ajoke fought back tears, thinking about the times Akin had brought laughter and light into her life. She wondered if she would ever escape the shadows of her past, or if her dreams of a family would forever remain out of reach. After Akin's departure, her heart felt heavy for days, but she was determined not to let the pain show. She had endured heartbreak before, and she knew that her children were watching her closely, needing her strength now more than ever. Each morning, she put on a brave face, taking extra care to make sure her children felt secure, even though her own spirit was one. Ajoke returned to her routine, immersing herself in work and family duties. She made sure her children's uniforms were clean, their meals were ready, and their schoolwork was completed. Life moved forward even if she felt a constant ache within. She had faced loneliness before, and she reminded herself that she could do it again. But this time was different. The whispers and gossip in the community seemed louder than ever. Each time she walked through the market or along the dusty road of her town, she could hear and feel the weight of people's eyes on her. Their judgment was heavy, passing through her composure. Some women would turn away when she approached, and others whispered behind her back, not even attempting to hide their disapproval. One day, as she was buying vegetables at the market to make something for her children, she overheard two women talking. "Did you hear? Akin, that handsome man, finally left her. No man will want to stay with a woman like her, with 3 children from 3 different men," the woman sneered. Ajoke's heart sank, but she took a deep breath and forced herself to ignore them. She focused on her children, who were waiting at home, knowing they were her reason to keep going. At home, her oldest child, Shade, started to notice her mother's sadness. Shade was just 8 years old, but she was wise beyond her years. She would often watch her mother with concern, sensing the hidden pain in Ajoke's eyes. As Ajoke struggled to navigate her new life, her friend Yetunde remained by her side, providing support. Yetunde had been a rock through every heartbreak, and this time was no different. She would often visit Ajoke's house after work, bringing her favorite snack or simply spending time with her, reminding her of their friendship. One evening, as they sat on Ajoke's small porch, watching the children play, Yetunde looked at her friend, her eyes filled with warmth. "Ajoke, you don't need a man to define you," she said gently. "Look at everything you've achieved. You have built a life on your own, 3 raised 3 beautiful children, and stood tall through every challenge. This is not a man. This is a man." Ajoke smiled, her eyes full with tears. "Thank you, Yetunde. I appreciate that. But I don't know if I can stay with you. I need to think about it." Yetunde looked at her, his eyes full with love. "Why? What is it? You are stronger than you think, Ajoke listened quietly, feeling the truth in Yetunde's words. She had spent so much time longing for acceptance and love, not realizing that she had already built a strong foundation for her family on her own. Yetunde continued, "Hold your head up high, Ajoke. People will talk, but their words don't matter. Your happiness and the happiness of your children are what counts." Hearing her friend's words brought a spark into Ajoke's heart. She began to focus on the blessings she already had, her children, her work, and the few people in her life who truly cared for her. She poured all her energy into giving her children a stable life and a loving environment. She helped them with schoolwork, attended their events, and was present for every milestone, no matter how small. The confidence she had lost started to return. Each day, she stood a little taller, feeling a new sense of purpose. She became more involved in her children's school, making friends with other parents who saw her as a devoted mother, not just someone with a complicated past. Slowly, she felt herself reconnecting with her community, finding few people who still valued her for who she was, not what she had been through. Her hard work didn't go unnoticed. She began to attract new clients for her business, people who appreciated her dedication and resilience. Her name began to spread beyond her small town as a skilled and reliable tailor, and her business grew steadily. She was no longer just that woman with 3 children by different men. She was Ajoke, a proud mother and a successful seamstress, and a friend who never turned her back on those that she loved. In a quiet moment, Ajoke would think about Akin and the pain of their separation, but she no longer felt the bitterness or heartbreak she once did. Instead, she was grateful for Yetunde's support and the strength she had found within herself. She was finally living for her children, for her dreams, and most importantly, for herself. Months passed, and life continued its steady rhythm for Ajoke. She was fully immersed in her children's life and her growing business. She had carved out a new identity, one that wasn't defined by her past mistakes or heartbreaks. Her strength and resilience were her guiding forces, and she felt a sense of peace that she hadn't experienced in years. One sunny afternoon, as she was outside arranging the clothes she had sewn in her small shop, she noticed a familiar figure walking towards her. Her heart skipped a beat as she recognized Akin, looking hesitant and a bit weary. Akin approached her slowly, his eyes filled with remorse and regret. "Ajoke," he began slowly, "I came back to apologize. I shouldn't have let other people's opinion get in the way of what we had. I made a mistake and I've regretted it every single day." Ajoke's heart felt a mixture of emotions: surprise, a touch of anger, and mostly sadness for what they had lost. She looked at him calmly, taking a deep breath. "Akin, I appreciate your apology," she said, "but I've learned to be strong on my own. I can't put myself through that pain again. I have my children, my work, and the peace I have finally found. I can't risk losing that." Akin nodded slowly, the regret in his eyes deepening. "I understand, Ajoke. I was wrong to have left. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I only came to tell you how sorry I am and to let you know that you mean more to me than I realized." Ajoke gave him a small sad smile. "We all make choices, Akin, and we all have to live with the consequences. I wish you well, truly, but I have moved on, and my focus now is on my children and the life I've worked hard to rebuild." Akin's shoulders slumped slightly, but he accepted her words. He looked at her one last time, a faint smile on his face. "You are an incredible woman, Ajoke. I will always admire your strength." With that, he walked away, leaving Ajoke standing, watching him disappear down the road. She felt a sense of closure, knowing that she had faced her past without anger or bitterness. She had found her voice, her independence, and her worth. Later that night, as she tucked her children into bed, Ajoke felt a deep sense of peace. She had chosen her path, one built on self-respect and love for her children. And as the months passed, people of Ajoke's town began to see her in a new light. The woman they had once whispered about and judged had become a symbol of resilience and dedication. She had not only raised her 3 children with love, but had also built a stable, honest life on her own. Slowly, the community's perception of her transformed from gossip and judgment to respect and admiration. Ajoke's tailoring shop became a popular spot in the town, not just for her talent and skills, but for the warmth and kindness she extended to everyone who entered. She greeted every customer with a smile, taking time to chat them and knowing exactly what they want. She had customers who came not just for the beautiful dresses, but to witness the strength she carried with such quiet dignity. One day, an elder in the community, who had once been one of her hardest critics, stopped by her shop. He came to place an order for a dress and then paused before speaking. "Ajoke," he said slowly, "I misjudged you. I've seen how hard you've worked and how you've raised your children with grace. You've earned our respect." Ajoke was taken aback by his words, feeling a surge of gratitude and relief. She simply nodded, her voice catching in her throat. She didn't need to say much. Her heart felt full knowing that people who had once looked down on her were now seeing her for who she truly was, a strong, devoted mother and a woman of integrity. From that day on, she noticed more and more acts of kindness from her neighbors. People would offer to help her carry her groceries, invite her for community events, and even bring small gifts for her children. The stigma that had once shadowed her life began to fade. Ajoke's children were her pride and joy, and she continued to pour all her love and energy into their lives. Shade, Tayo, and Bola blossomed under her care, growing into kind and confident young children. They understood the sacrifices their mother had made for them, and they admired her resilience. Ajoke's example taught them the importance of self-respect, love, and the courage to stand tall even when the world seems against you. One evening, as she closed up her shop, she reflected on how far she had come. She had faced heartbreak, judgment, and loneliness, yet here she was, stronger than ever. Her business was thriving, her children were happy, and she had finally made peace with her past. And while she had closed herself off to love for a long time, Ajoke felt a quiet openness blossoming in her heart. She no longer needed a partner to feel complete. But if love came her way, she would welcome it, but not out of need, but out of choice. As the sun set over the town, Ajoke stood outside of her shop, feeling a deep sense of contentment. She had built a life of meaning, one filled with love, resilience, and self-acceptance. She knew that whatever the future held, she would face it with the same strength and courage that had carried her through the darkest days. Ajoke was no longer just the woman with 3 children from 3 different men and a complicated past. She was a mother, a friend, and a respected member of her community. She had created a new beginning for herself, proving that one's past does not define one's future. And as she walked home with her children by her side, she knew that she had finally found the happiness she had always been searching for within herself. The story teaches us that true strength and self-worth comes from within, not from society's judgment or the validation of others. Despite facing rejection and criticism, Ajoke finds resilience in herself and becomes a loving mother and respected community member. Her journey shows that one's past does not define their future, and that peace and happiness can be achieved through self-acceptance, love for one's family, and the courage to stand tall. True happiness lies in inner strength, and when you focus on building a meaningful life, respect and admiration will naturally follow. Thank you so much for watching this fantastic story on African Stories by Tiana. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more amazing stories. See you next time.